everybody. Welcome to this week's Blah, Blah, Blah in Hindsight episode. Um, I am Katee Sackhoff, and I'm joined by my host, um, my brother from another mother.
My host. My host Harlow. It's my new.
My host.
My host. That's my new. That's my new. When I finally live my long dream of being a professional athlete, that's my name. My host Harlow.
My host, Starlight.
My host Harlow for 3.
I feel like this is all very new, but I don't want to miss this opportunity to tell people that, because my daughter's name, her initials are GGG. It's partially because I hope she's a professional athlete. I really want someone to scream, "And welcome to the field, Triple G."
Hell yeah, absolutely should be Triple G.
Or she'll be a serial killer and carve it into people's foreheads.
Only you could go there immediately after the kid is going to be this professional athlete. It's like, oh, with 3 bodies in the yard. But she won the gold medal.
These days you can do both.
She won the gold. Yeah, she won the gold medal.
You can have it all, which is back to our segue into Danielle Panabaker. You can have it all. You can be a serial killer and a professional athlete.
Is that that's not what she is?
No. That conversation was really wonderful. For anyone that hasn't listened to the Danielle Panabaker interview that came out the other day, I highly on Tuesday, I highly suggest you go listen to that and then listen to our Hindsight, because it's a fantastic interview.
It is. It was great, and I had it, because I go back and peek behind the curtain for people when I'm editing, I'm revisiting them. I was there for when it happened. And I remember after initially it went down, I was like, that was a really good conversation in general. You could tell that you guys really respect each other professionally and just in general. Like she was there obviously for her support of you doing the show. She was open because she was supposed to be on our show before the strike and when we had all the air problems, the sound problems. But to listen,
it's true, she was.
Listen to that conversation though. It was just, and I loved where you went with it. You went into different paths. You because that to me, that episode was exactly what you said you wanted the show to be, which was, yes, I'm going to talk to my friends and colleagues about work, but I also want to talk about life. And you did all of that.
Yeah, thank you. I think that it was also our first episode at the new studio. Yeah. So I felt the sort of pressure of that, but also the excitement of that. And like, it felt really professional. And like, so I felt like I don't know, stepped up my game a little bit. Started taking ADHD medication for the interview.
Because of the AJ interview.
Because of the AJ interview. She is, one of the most, she's just like a very, very calm, reassuring, sort of like level-headed human being who has the ability to play characters that are, the opposite of that.
Yeah, and you could tell, but even when she was talking about, I loved where the path went, whether it was starting with how she got into it and the fact that her sister was actually the one who if you would have guessed when they were younger, you would have thought her sister would be the one who would had her career, right? But
yeah,
the fact that I loved what she said when she was like, well, I play it, the idea that I can play people that I'm not and live and walk in someone's shoes that I'm not and to feel, it was just a nice little peek into the curtain of her psyche, of why she does it in general and the things that she can do. And it was that portion of it I enjoyed very much, so that led into other great parts of the conversation.
Yeah. I loved listening to what she was like as a little kid. It's one of the things that I always, especially now that I have a child, I love to hear what people were like as kids. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny that, Danielle is a little kid, I think is so much like my daughter. Yeah. Just like you find her in the corner with a book, and she's happy. But she's also very observant, as is Danielle, which makes her a great director. She's level headed, like I said, but she has the ability to observe everything around her
Sure.
and also be malleable, like she was talking about. Like, you have to sort of, like in television, you have to, as a director, you know you need to be able to change course if things don't look like they're going the way that you wanted them to. You have to adjust and realign what you're looking for. And I think that's why she's such a good director, is because she does have the ability to just sort of go with the flow, come in overly planned,
Yes.
and then go with the flow.
Yeah, and she's also a very good listener. You could tell, like, when just sitting down and how she was observing particular things, and as you mentioned, she's super smart. And watching how she wanted to do that in general, and the idea also that she was worried that she would be able to do it, because I thought it was a really great conversation where you guys got into about being a woman in this business, and the fact that, like, she got pregnant and was worried about what that was, if that was going to hurt opportunities. And then that story, which still is so, again, heartbreaking for me to hear you say it, when the story of you when you went in, and what that dopey guy said to you when you were, you were basically were
Yeah.
upfront with someone and were being, like, kind of vulnerable to them. And then I just, even hearing, I don't know who the person was, you've never told me, I've never asked, but it just feels like there's such, it was so insensitive, but probably not even realizing that would hurt somebody. So the fact that you shared
Yeah.
that was pretty amazing as well.
I think sometimes that people think when you are holding your shit together and you are handling something seemingly very well, and you're not allowing your emotions get the better of you. I think people think that you're just stronger and that you should be able to handle it. And you know, I've always been that person in my life that, oh, Katie can handle it. Katie's fine. You know, just just from the time I was a little kid, it was that, Katie can handle it. She'll be fine. So I think in that instance, the person was referencing the fact, or sort of like aligning with what he thought my feelings were, which was that I was very pragmatic about it, that I couldn't have my own children, I couldn't carry my own children. And I think that he, maybe in some weird, messed up way, was trying to show me a silver lining. You know what I
I
mean?
do. I do. Unfortunately, I think that that's exactly, probably, you're right. And I also think that probably,
Yeah.
do you think that it also maybe plays into, like you said, like the roles that you've played, the perception, because you've talked about this many times over, that people, when they see you, they see Starbuck, they see bo-katan, they see, like, these tough characters. And you said, and I don't necessarily think this is all the way true, but when I talk to you, you say, well, I'm not tough. You're definitely tough, but
Mm,
maybe, but not in the way that they are, obviously, because they have to.
of course.
They're movie TV tough. But do you think that that's also one of the things that maybe, and maybe the same thing with Danielle too, is that people, when you walk into that room, they see the character, they see these characters that you played, even if they are in the business.
You learn really quickly in this industry to not wear your heart on your sleeve,
Yeah.
because this industry is not um, for the faint of heart.
Hmm.
You get a lot of rejection, a lot of criticism. It's not easy, and so you learn to protect yourself by being seemingly unemotional about certain things that are outside of your control.
Sure.
Um, and so I do think sometimes that people think that I'm much more tough than I am, and that I don't have a soft side and I'm not vulnerable. But I think in reality, for myself, and I can't speak about Danielle, but for myself, I am much more vulnerable, I think, than my characters would ever be.
I will tell you that I think that this show has proven that. And I think that this show in general has. I mean, not to people who know you, obviously. Like, I always knew that this is who you were, and people who know you know. But I think that you are giving a massive peek behind the curtain to show exactly what you just said there. And I think that Danielle and you both did that in the episode because, as I mentioned earlier, that's what I meant, where you and I had these conversations and you're like, I absolutely want to talk to people in the business. I want to do that, but I don't want to just talk about the business. It's just not, it doesn't interest me to just do that. I want to talk about life. And when you hit your stride in that episode with Danielle, that I went, that's what she's talking about. That's what she wants to do. Because even when it was combined with the business, and when she's talking about her relationship with Hayes and talking about how certain things, how she had to balance work and how I thought when she said I had to leave with friends because I wanted to make sure I called him to see how he was, to make sure that that's how you maintain a relationship. That was on the balance of both the work conversation and life. And I thought it was just a beautiful kind of transition into exactly what you wanted to do.
Yeah. It's always fun when you talk to people that from the outside, like meaning me, that I view people as having like a strong relationship, like a relationship that works, and to get the little tools and tricks of the things that they do, because they're very similar to the things that I do. I've been in relationships before where it was very one-sided and I was giving of myself constantly. And there was no reciprocation of that. And it was, in hindsight, like a recipe for disaster from the very beginning, had I known. But to see somebody do what I do, which is, give up my time for my partner, like make sure I'm checking in, make sure I am there emotionally and physically as much as possible. And you leave the dinner parties early so you can check in. You do all of those things because that is what makes a relationship work. And if you want a relationship to work, you both have to do those kind of things.
Yeah.
And she's got a very strong relationship. And I love her. I love listening to Danielle talk about the kind of mom that she is,
Yeah.
Because her kids are very close to my daughter's age. And so it's, we're all just learning as we go.
Yeah.
And I love that because she seems like such a together person. And I love that she as well is just figuring it out as she goes along.
I also love how much you can tell she loves being a mom. Like you can just tell. And it is through the conversation. Obviously you do too, but I mean, I'm saying from meeting her and hearing her talk about it, it's like you could tell that she loves her work. She loved what she was doing, but it was the way that she talked about both her husband and her kids, that's her full-time thing. That is what she is, focused on, which is incredible. But on the work side of it, I did find it very interesting on the geek in me, if you will, when you're talking about Warner Brothers and when you asked about the Flash and the movie itself, that it's pretty crazy that they didn't even talk to them about it. They didn't even talk to. She's like, we didn't even know. They didn't even tell us. We found out about it secondhand or whatever it was.
But that's how it always goes.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of times that the and I'm not saying that in this situation there was a lack of respect, but I do think that a lot of times there's such a lack of respect for the creatives in this industry, for the actors, the writers, the directors, sort of like disregarding the whole process because like, oh, that's easy. They're just playing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is one of those situations where, and it happens all the time, where a studio will be bringing something back, or they'll be doing like what they did in the Flash, which is those sort of like,
CGI
multiverse CGI.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. Where it would make complete sense that these other characters would exist, but they don't. In some way, in their minds, they've decided that those two franchises don't work together.
Right.
And it's weird to me.
Well, but she also said, which I thought when they announced this, the fact that because it was a different regime back then. I mean, Zaslav wasn't there, Gunn wasn't there. Like all these people weren't. Even when the Flash movie that came out, because that was originally announced in like early, I think like 2015 or something, and it didn't come to fruition until last year. and there were so many iterations of it and all this stuff. But Gunn was definitely not there when they developed that thing. Muschietti was like the last of the he was, there were so many, there was 5 different directors or something that were attached to it. So when they announced that, I remember saying, I was on a panel that I was, and a lot of people disagreed with me at the time. And I said, I don't understand, if you have a Flash in television right now, and this is again 2014, 2015, that show was just out, it was at its height. I'm like, why are you not using that cast? If you're going to have this whole DC thing kind of combined together, why not just use that cast?
As a television actress, I feel like I have felt this before. So there is a clear feeling in our industry that television actors are in some way not as bankable as movie stars, that they're 2 very different things.
Yeah.
And that, I could see a studio thinking that in some way that show isn't as strong as they want a movie version to be.
Sure.
Or is different, or is in some way, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
there are a lot of times, like in my career, where I've just heard people say things like, "Oh, she doesn't translate to the big screen."
Right. I think I'd be honest, and I have no problem saying it. I think that's what I think that, and I think wrongly, and no disrespect to, I can say it, no disrespect to Brie Larson, but I think that's what happened with Captain Marvel. I still to this day think that you would have been an amazing Captain Marvel. I think that especially during that time in like 2012, 2013, where it's rumored, and again, no disrespect to Brie, I think she does a great job, but I just think that might have been, well, she's from Battlestar. She hasn't done the big screen like that too, and I think that's a misstep that I think you're right does happen. But I also think, though, I do think that it's changed a bit with streaming. That there's, I mean, even Battlestar. Battlestar was ahead of its time in the way that show looked like most streaming shows do today, and that was rare. I remember, and I think I even told you this back in the day when I first met you, is that when I first saw that show on, I was like, well, it's on the Sci-Fi Channel. It's not gonna be very high quality, and it was like again streaming quality, and that's pushed over. Whether it's the network show like Lost that happened, that was able to do, but then all of these shows, whether it's Game of Thrones and you throw a rock now at some of the, whether it's Apple shows, they all look so cinema quality that they're even bringing in movie stars to do these things. So I do think do you think, and I should ask you this, do you think because of streaming that it might be a little easier for television actors now to be able to make that jump and look at Millie Alcock, which Game of Thrones just got cast as Supergirl.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that a couple things happened. I think that streaming happened, but I think also and I'm not going to call it the death of the movie theater. Mm-hmm. That's not what I'm going to say. But the movie theaters have become not as predictable for the success of a film anymore. Mm-hmm. So a lot of studios are putting money and big budget money into streaming.
Sure.
That big money is what attracts movie stars. Mm-hmm. That was the difference between television and movie stars back in the day.
Right.
Movie stars wouldn't do TV. There wasn't enough money. Now there's more money in streaming for a lot of people than in film. So I think that, and the content is there. Yeah. The quality of the work is there. There's not that huge, massive discrepancy anymore between like something you would see in the theaters and something you'd see in streaming. So also technology got better and cheaper. Yeah. So I think that a lot of things had to happen for that to happen. But if you go back to 2012, there was still a stigma of you're just a TV actress.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially because the streaming wars, if you will, didn't really start until like late, I think like 2017, 2018, because Netflix was like the first in the game, and then all this stuff happened. So it's a different ball game now for sure, as everybody's trying to figure it out. Hence, look at the strikes and what happened. But it is, and obviously for people who just heard you talk there, you know the business so well. Danielle knows the business so well, as you guys were talking about. I loved the conversation that you had just about the Flash in general, about working on that show and how they looked, about how much fun you guys got to do. And you had said to her that still was one of the most fun characters that you got to play.
It is. I loved my time at the Flash. I was actually, talk about being vulnerable and sensitive. I was really disappointed I didn't get asked back. I mean, so much so that I was having my manager call them constantly and just be like, look, she really wants to come back. Like,
Yeah.
and they didn't for whatever reason have me back. And, I don't know if it's that the story went different direction. I don't know if it's that, for whatever reason, they didn't like what I did with the character. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But I was really disappointed. I loved that show. I loved working with the people I got to work with, and I loved being that character. There's every once in a while there's a character that comes along that there's more to tell.
Yeah.
And it sucks when you don't get to tell. And I felt that with Sarah Corvus when I did the Bionic Woman show in 2007, whatever that was. I almost said 1997. I'm not that old. And I felt that with Aminette Black, you know?
Right.
And I feel that with like bo-katan. I feel that with bo-katan. I feel that with Vic Moretti. I don't feel that with Starbuck,
Yeah. Okay.
So you have to, you got to wrap it up in a bow to be able to like say goodbye to a character.
Sure.
And if you don't get that luxury, I feel like as an actor, as a performer, as an artist, I feel like there's still more in the tank.
And it's so funny to hear you say that, to bring it back to Danielle also, is because as you mentioned, out of all those characters, you're like, I don't feel that way with Starbuck, because you did it for so many seasons. You had it for so many seasons. You had the bow on it. You were able to, and it's the same when you look at like Danielle did a lot of seasons of The Flash. So she talks about it very much. So she got great words to say about all of her castmates and everything too. But you can also tell she was like, great chapter, moving on. And it's because she was there for so long. Yeah.
Look, I mean, anyone who does anything for that many years, you're ready. You're ready to go.
Yeah.
I mean, that's me being presumptuous, of course, but I did Battlestar for 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, I think, of my life.
Wow.
She did that, and 22 episodes a season.
Yeah, that's a lot, man.
Is hard work. I mean, if you go back to my conversation with Bryce, and the comment that BJ made when he said that, shooting a movie is running a marathon, shooting a TV show is running until you die, which still gets me. I'm sorry, I snorted.
Yeah.
Because I have a visceral reaction when I hear that comment, their quote, because I go, oh my God, somebody gets it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. I can tell. I mean,
22 episodes is hard.
And I think that it's kind of earlier what you were saying before too, not understanding, because you still get those comments like, oh, you play make believe and you get, what's so hard about it? It's like, dude, that has been that you spend that much time on your feet. You're using a lot of emotion. You're using a lot of mental energy. You're using so much of what you're, and for that many episodes and for that long to shoot, it's grueling for anybody.
I come home from a 16-hour day where I've been standing on cement floors all day long. And not only do I have to figure out how to wake up at 3:30 in the morning to get a workout in, I also have to memorize 8 pages of dialogue for the next day.
Right. And depending on the role itself too, mentally, that role could be in there. That character can be in there. People don't understand that you're taking on the emotion, the brain waves of a different human being. You're creating a human being like inside of you, and you've got to think like that person. You've got to react like that person. It's hard to shut it down. It's like you said, you're not just clocking out and that character's gone. You try to do that sometimes, but like in your head, that character's still there. I'm sure you've reacted as characters before. I'm sure you've had conversations where you're like, oh, I'm so used to like acting this way and being in the moment of this character. It comes out.
I mean, I definitely have like dreams of a person who has split personalities.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
My dreams are as if I'm like 20 different people. It's quite crazy.
Yeah.
But that also, like, talking about the thing that Danielle was talking about when, can you have it all? And I used to think before I had children, like, At one point, I think I started to understand this as I got older. I think when I was younger, I was like, of course you can have it all. Of course you can have it all.
Hmm.
And then it was like, well, no, you can't have it all. You have to make up your mind. And I think as I've aged and as, I got married, I found my partner, we had a child, and I realized, and it's something Danielle said, and I believe this in my bones. Having it all, your version of what all is just changes.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
having it all to me now is not the same thing as what I thought it would be when I was 25.
It's maturity,
You
man.
know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, 100%. Same, absolutely, same thing. It's like you get, and I don't know if you said this, but someone said it recently. Is that you're okay? You're allowed to be selfish when you're younger, right? And in what, because you're trying to figure it all out, and you're trying to figure out when it's just you. You're allowed to be selfish, and you're allowed to be selfish when you're older, but not at the expense of the people around you. So like if there's like being selfish, like, you know what? I'm going to take a day to myself. I do everything for everybody else today. I'm going to go lay by the pool. I'm going to go do this. That's how you're allowed to be selfish. But your priorities change as you get older, your goals change, as the things that you're looking to do and things that you want to do and things that you might have wanted to do to accomplish when you were 23, as you said, this doesn't mean the same anymore because your perception of the world has changed, your perception of people has changed. So absolutely, I very much relate to that.
Yeah. I think part of it is that, if you're looking pragmatically about life, I know I'm on the second half of it. I know I'm on the second half of it. God, I would love to live till I'm 100. And in that sense, I wouldn't be
Would
at the
you?
second half.
Would you?
I
Because
would.
see,
Yes, I do.
Kate, if I get to a place, if we still know each other, and I'm 90 looking up at the sky, and I'm like, I can't walk, push me into the road. Just push me into the road.
I always say that I have to make it to 87 because if I can make it to 87, Robin will be 77 and he's a little too old to move on.
Fair. Totally fair. Yeah. But
Um, but I do think that's it though. I
yeah.
think that you start to realize like I know now that it's finite.
Yeah.
We've lost enough friends. We've lost enough of people in our lives that meant the world to us to know that no day is guaranteed.
Right.
Tomorrow is not guaranteed. So what do you want to do today? Do you want to spend it working your ass off? Or do you want to spend it with the people that you love, having fun and taking and getting the most out of the day? Now, granted, most people have to do both, but that's what I mean about having it all.
Right.
You shift it and it adjusts for yourself.
That's exactly
for me,
right.
the perfect, yeah.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that's exactly right. I think the answer to that is you got to balance it. You got to balance it. You can have days if working real hard and if sometimes it's like if you're working real hard, if you love work, then it shouldn't really feel like working hard. It just feel like you're going in and doing your thing, but it's still you're doing your best, you're giving it your all, but you still balance that out. You can't let it dominate if you want to have other people in your life. Now, there's some people that very much so are just like, nope, my career is what I love and that's what I'm going to do. And to their credit, they don't have people around them and they don't get involved in relationships and they don't have these things. They know that they can't give. And
Or they shouldn't.
Or they shouldn't, but
they shouldn't.
But there are people who don't, who shouldn't, who do, and wind up hurting people because they can't do that balance. But that's why I always, when people are like, oh, people that I know, you can't commit, you can't do this. It's like, no, but they know. We have our buddy Mark Ellis, who talks about it all the time. Mark Ellis is a comedian who loves his lifestyle, loves to do what he does, and he doesn't commit to relationships. He doesn't commit to doing these things because he knows what he likes. He knows it, and he does. And to me, I always value that because that's what he does. And he loves stand-up comedy. He loves doing what he does, and he loves watching football. That's his life, and he loves it, and he's happy doing it. And he doesn't hurt anybody in the process. And I think that that's that balance of you can either know what you want, go after it, and don't hurt people in the process, or balance it out.
Yeah. Don't pretend to be something that you're not. Like, be honest with people up front, right? Like, if you know that you're the type of person that doesn't want children,
right?
Don't date people that do.
Exactly, 100%. Right.
don't be a dick.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. But that's it, man. And I think, look, so, one of the things that I noticed with both you and Danielle was that she came in, and as I said earlier, she was so welcoming, just and supportive of you doing this show. But this was our first show in the studio, in the new studio. The studio itself is amazing. The sound is great. The quality is great. A lot of comments on that, how much people loved that aspect of it. But I feel like Danielle was the perfect first guest. Did you, in that new studio, did you feel the same?
I think so too. Yeah, absolutely. I think that, listen, we have some phenomenal guests lined up. So, it's not to take away from anybody else, because I love the conversations and they just keep getting better and better. But Danielle is so reassuring, and look, she's a director. That's what directors do, right?
Yep.
They support the talent in front of the screen, and they find a way to help facilitate them being the best version of themselves. And that's what she does. That's what she did. And she, it was really a great conversation. And there's just so much about her to applaud and sort of,
admire.
Admire. Yeah, she's just such a strong, wonderful woman.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you did it, because as you said, we got a lot of great guests coming up. And speaking of great guests, next week, man, we got Ming Na Wen, right?
I know, it's a huge one.
It's such a fun interview. Like, there's so many jokes. There's so many laughs. It's full on, like, every emotion you could possibly want in this interview. I think people are going to absolutely lose their minds. I can't wait for people to see it. And I'm glad that we got a chance for people to see this one here today with Danielle.
I agree. I agree. And our hindsight, there may be a few that look like this. I don't know. We've got some in studio ones, and we've got some hindsights where we'll be in two separate locations. But it's all good.
The chemistry's still there. It still works.
It's true. Even though you look like this on camera right now to me.
I know. I'm frozen for you. I should, just because you said it, you're going to send me the screenshot, so I'll probably just have to put it in embarrassment. So that's fine.
It's absolutely like it's one of your best looks.
Hey, what are you gonna do? Standing up, just stopped. All right, you want to tell people what to do here?
Absolutely. You guys, subscribe, follow the channel here on YouTube, or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or wherever you find your podcast, make sure to subscribe there. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Is that right? Is that what I'm supposed to say? What am I supposed to say?
Nothing.
I don't know what I'm supposed to say.
Nothing. You just said see you next Tuesday, though. Bye, everybody.
I should have called the show.
See you next Tuesday. All right. And cue the music.